you obviously know, our kids, they model us, they copy us, straight from the beginning, how young they are. Sometimes, I believe we are their biggest role model, if not even their heroes, right? So
Right.
if you think about that's a huge responsibility. Um, so what are your thoughts on that, on that responsibility of actually being like their biggest role model, taking on that responsibility? And do you have like maybe systems in place that you use to make sure that you or guarantee is maybe a hard word, but that you can always remember, like, okay, yeah, I am the biggest role model, and that's what I want to be. That's, I'm setting those high standards for myself, as I know I want to be that person for them.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the way I can't remember what podcast guest gave me this example, but it really stuck with me, which is you have to be the character in your own movie. You have to think of your life as a movie that your kids are watching nonstop. Now, I'll take that a step further with my own interpretation. So I've thought about that. I've done that. And I was like, sometimes the character in my movie really is good and on point and had good moments. And then there are some times where this character just sucked. Right. And so sometimes I'm like, am I the hero or the villain? Right. And unfortunately, I have a lot of villain days. I have, even though I run this community and this podcast, like I always joke that, yeah, I'm the president and the founder, but I'm the first guy in line as a client because, man, it's never perfect. It's never perfect. It's messy. It is messy. There isn't a week that goes by that I don't apologize to my kids for something, like me acting like a child, like a big idiot, at times. So my kids, they watch my every move. They watch how I respond to them. And then I see little bits of me show up in them. And sometimes it's so pleasant and sometimes it's so scary, right? I have a temper just like any other guy. But how this shows up in my life is here's an example. My 12-year-old, I'll talk about the good first, then the bad. My 12-year-old is a very empathetic person. It amazes me how well he can read people, but I can read people really well. I'm a very empathetic person. When someone shares a story with me, I can feel those feelings. Like when someone shares how distressed they are and they're crying, I almost want to cry with them because I can feel it. I understand it. And my 12-year-old's the same way. He can tell just by your body language what's going through your head. I'll walk into a room and be like, "You okay? You look like you're having a bad day." And I'm like, "Dude, you're 12." Like, but I can do that too. Now, at the same token, and then so like, and my 10-year-old probably has like my relentless work ethic. And I don't say that to be egotistical. Like I'm relentless to probably my own demise. Like I could literally work for 23 hours out of the day and just keep going. We just moved this past weekend, and I was wearing my Fitbit. The first day that we moved, I walked over 40,000 steps, which was just shy of 18 miles. And then the second day I did 22,000 miles, which was just shy of 10. So I basically in a day and a half ran a marathon. And I just kept going and going and going and going. And my wife was like, "God bless, will you take a break?" I was like, I want it done. I want it done. And my 10-year-old, he is a no quit. He will die before he stops, So that's the good thing, right? Here's where it shows up poorly though. My 4-year-old is like a chatterbox. He's just like any other 4-year-old. And sometimes when you're trying to get out just one sentence to your wife or your kids it's like, dad, 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 dad. And you're like, "Lawson, for the love of God, please be quiet. I am trying to say something, you just can't get it out. Well, I noticed my 12-year-old, "Lawson, for the love of God, would you stop talking?" And I'm like, "Oh boy, there's me." You know what I mean? And then and then there are other things too that what are some other things? So I'm not much of an excuse person at all, but sometimes I can get on my temper tantrums. I don't want to do this because, like even though I'll do it, like because I'll be like, "Man, really don't want to shovel the driveway, man, right now. It's really cold. I'm not in the mood. I'd rather just stay inside. But I'm going to do it anyway, but I'm complaining about it. And that will show up. I don't really want to do it. It's cold outside and it's warm in here and I'll do it later. So I could see that procrastination, that complaining show up. And I'm like, I need to be better at that because that's where it's showing up. So yeah, I try to be that hero, but every day it's like Two-Face, from the movie Batman, or it's like the Incredible Hulk. Maybe that's a better one, without the green and the muscles, where you're either Bruce Banner or you're the Hulk, even though they're both heroes, but both have completely different personalities. And you are the star in your own movie. Your kids will emulate you, the good and the bad, and you will see little snippets of you all day long. And the cool thing about it is when you see that, I'd be like, here's some things, here are some things I've done lately. Like if my 10, 12-year-old talks to my 4-year-old like I'm like, you know what, you shouldn't talk to him like that. And you know what, I shouldn't either. I know you're hearing that from me. So maybe I should be the first to not do those things. And maybe you could do the same. So it's teaching them ownership as well.